What's up, everybody? We are back. I've got the boxing encyclopedia, Timmy Irish, in the house. What's up, Timmy?
Mike, how are you today? Good to see you, pal.
Doing great, man. Thank you for taking the time to do another one of these. Today, we're going to be talking about death in the boxing ring. Before we get started here, I want to make sure and tell everybody to please hit like, subscribe. One thing I wanted to talk about before we get going with some of these big cases was one that I had some experience with, and it was David Gonzalez. David was a very, very good fighter, tough guy. The guy had a tough life, period. And David was a guy that I was around a lot, most of the time daily in the 90s. He actually had a really good record. He finished with 40-6, 23 knockouts. Along the way, David ended up having two guys die in the ring as a result of fights. The first one that he had was Rico Velasquez. This was in 1988. In this fight, Velasquez dies from injuries sustained in the fight. That was David's first unfortunate tragedy, and David was rather young then, so I don't know what mentally how that weighed on him. The next fight, though, was against Olympic gold medalist Robert Wangili. And in this fight, I actually sparred with David a few times before this fight, before he left to go to Las Vegas. David was in good shape. He was sharp. Again, here you go. This was at the Aladdin, Las Vegas. Joe Cortez was the referee. Some people say that he didn't stop the fight fast enough. They interviewed him obviously afterwards, and he said he thought he stopped it right on time. Now, after this fight, I do think I saw a difference in David, an effect on him from that fight. They came by and interviewed him, the newspapers, and this was one of the articles. That's me and my nephew were in the back behind him because I was kind of helping him out that day. I just wanted to touch on that before we got going into the next one. Timmy, we're going to go into Gabrielis first.
Yes, yeah. Jimmy Garcia, the death of Jimmy Garcia.
Let's talk about that. Timmy, tell me what all you uncovered.
Well, Ruelas is he's a quiet guy, a humble guy, and I listened to him speak about it. Well, we both saw the clip, and he said that he didn't want to fight. He actually said he thought he'd never fight again after Jimmy Garcia died. But, it's hard for the fighter. The brain, these guys, they have clots, aneurysms, all kinds of stuff happens. And you don't realize how much injury you sustain in a fight, even if it's not evident. And you feel okay, but getting punched in the face and the head, and apparently it did damage to these guys. And like Garcia, such a young fighter, and he said that it was Jimmy Garcia's mom that gave him the drive to go back, because she said that she would go to his fights and she would cheer for him, and then he thought about it and he came back. But I just think that any young guy, any man, anybody, period, that dies at your hands, But let me make it clear. It's not on purpose. It's not intentional. When you fight and, you guys are going at it and, and you're trying to hurt one another, that's one thing. That's in the spirit of competition. But very few fighters walk in the ring saying, "Oh, I'm going to hurt this guy." It happens because of personalities sometimes. Mm-hmm. But if you hurt somebody, and you're meant to do it, it's one thing. If you hurt somebody and it's unintentional, then both are hard to live with. I think one harder than the other.
Colombia, Jimmy Garcia. Referee Halpern calls a halt to the bout. The official time, 25 seconds of round number 11. The winner by knockout victory from Jalisco, Yerba Buena, Mexico. Still, super featherweight champion of the world, Gabriel And Jimmy Garcia collapses in his corner.
God, I hate to see this.
Medical examination now ongoing as Jimmy Garcia.
Apropos of what you were saying, Roy, I've always felt that there should be.
But you got to take into account that these are young guys, young fighters. And poor David, 2 times in 6 years. Yeah.
And I think the first time, and listen, with David, like I said, he had a hard, he lived a rough life. When he was a teenager, man, at 16, he accidentally killed a friend with a shotgun. So, I mean, this is number 3 going on for David as far as in his life.
Yeah.
So you got to, and so that's 16. At 16, you may not mentally be, I know it messed him up, but the thing is, like you said, though, you made the best point you made is this. Gabriel didn't go in there angry at this guy saying, "Hey,
right,
I'm going to take this guy out." He went in there as a job, as a sport, to win. He didn't go in there to do that. So having that happen is different because he wasn't angry at the guy, I should say. It's not like it was somebody he hated,
right,
or somebody who had, done something in the underworld where, hey, I got to take this guy out.
yeah.
It is a sport, so it's
And
a different thing.
You just said the right thing, both of them. It's their job. That's what they do for a living, It's just tragic, all the way around.
It is.
Because I'm sure that it's something they live with day to day, for a moment, for a second, for whatever, it's in their mind. There's no escaping it. Right. And like what's his name? Emil Griffith and Bernie Perret. They fought 3 times.
Yes.
And here's another thing too that has to be brought up. What was the condition, like, of the 2 fighters that David fought, and then what was the condition of the fighter Garcia? You know what I mean? The
right.
prior fights leading up, and even you got to take into account their personal life,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the thing with Perret, and anything you see that anything for $1, these guys were starving. You didn't even fight Emil Griffith if you're Bernie Perret, and Gene Fulmer in like 15 months is like,
Definitely, especially if you took a good beating. I mean, that what you just said may be the key to a lot of it. And you're saying, what condition were these guys coming in, right, Timmy?
Yeah.
Well, I've been to a lot of pre-fight physicals, and most of them are something that I could do with no medical experience. There was no real, like examination, especially if a guy had just been in a lot of fights. I would say a person who had just, say you look at the guy's last fight, you're the doctor, and you go, this guy was just in a 10-round fight. Well, we may do more extensive check on him if it was less than 100 days ago or whatever. We're going to do a little more extensive check. I've seen guys walk in and not even really get questioned, and it's signed off, boom, you're good to go. There's no check. I know one guy, before we move on deep into Emil Griffith and Perret, Chris Uzi Man Gomez. I didn't see him for a while. Tough little fighter. He fought one big fight. He fought one real big fight, but he's a local guy here. And little Uzi Man, I see him at like a store. And I'm like, Chris, man, where you been, buddy? And he's like, oh, Mike, I had to retire. And I said, wait, what? And he goes, yeah, look here. He showed me he had a cut from the side of his head.
Yeah.
Found out he had a blood clot in his head. He had to
Yeah.
have emergency surgery. Saved his life, you know.
Yeah.
But how many people does that not happen, you know?
Yeah. And here's another thing, which I don't know. I think it still goes on today. If the fighter gets hurt in a fight and he goes to the hospital, the doctor, he has to have medical coverage, or he has to go in his pocket.
Right.
And more so in the old days. Like I was reading with Perret, he got $3,000. He flew to England. He fought the guy. He took a tremendous beating in that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was seeing double. He was having double vision, like in the ring, and after they stopped it. And here's a bad sign, and especially a head injury, is he started vomiting. And anyway, by the time he got out of the arena and they got the cab, he could see straight. So he didn't go to the hospital. And that may have been the start of it. If Perret would have went to the hospital that day, and that idiot that was his manager, maybe he'd be alive, or would have lived to be an older man.
Yes.
But it's just negligent. The fighter is treated like a piece of meat.
My pleasure meeting you, sir. Are you the kid's son?
But I want you to know that it's there's no hard feelings here, and
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I didn't go in there to hurt no one.
I know.
But things happen. Jesus.
The way promoters are, they chew you up and spit you out. And you saw that with Tim Witherspoon. Don King, for Christ's sake, he was fighting for the championship. He was charging the guy for ice cubes, towels, anything he could do to put his hand in his pocket. But back to Perret, I thought, my God, man, instead of going to a restaurant, if he would have went to the emergency room and, he was deathly ill just minutes before that, for a good hour and a half or so.
Yes.
And then the downfall starts,
Right.
And the 15 rounds, you got to be tired going into the 15th round, 14th round, 13th, 12th, even if you're in great shape, because these guys are banging all night. And
Right.
Perret, in the second fight in the weigh-in, he used a sexual slur against Emil Griffith.
Right.
And it was purported in the paper that Griffith was gay. And Griffith was embarrassed, and, we're talking about the 60s.
Right.
And he left right away. And then that started the war.
All right, against the ropes, almost helpless. A minute to go.
The hard feelings.
Yes.
Because Emil Griffith was a really competent, really skilled fighter. But this guy, provoking him set him off. And I think that has a lot to do with the outcome in the last fight. And the fight before that, if you look at the fight with Fulmer, he went from welter to middle back to welter, And Fulmer took him out in 10 rounds. And you see in the first one there, Griffith beat him in the 13th round. Mm-hmm. And then Perret took the title back. And then
right. 15-round fight.
Yeah. Then it leads up to the last fight, up to Griffith, with the tragedy happened in the 12th round. But Fulmer and Perret was a war. It was, and Perret didn't get the better of Fulmer. He got the worst part of it. But what I wanted to finish is with that thing with England with the double vision. You know, when he took that fight, there's a fight before that. I don't know if he got stopped, but he got hurt. I don't know if it was a KO or a TKO, but he was suspended for 30 days. And a couple weeks later, he took that fight with the British Commonwealth champion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he saw double. And, it could lead one to believe that that's where his problems really started. And then, with the aneurysm in the fight, I think he hung on for about 10 days or something like that.
Yeah, so he died on April 3rd.
9 days, 10 days he lasted. Because
Right.
I think the fight was on the 24th of March. Yeah, it was.
Right. Yes.
So 10 days. He lasted exactly 10 days, correct.
Man, terrible.
And he had kids, and he was proud Cuban, correct.
Uh-huh.
But I honestly could tell any young fighter, the last thing you want to do is insult the guy you're going to fight. You do your talking in the ring. I think what Perret did was unnecessary, and he paid for it dearly. Maybe he paid too much for it, you know what I mean?
That's right.
But I've seen Griffith fight, a lot of reels of Griffith, and Griffith was, he was an amazing fighter. He really was. And,
Yeah. Definitely was a great
I don't
fighter.
want to take anything away from Bernie Perret, but I don't think Perret was in, even though he holds a victory over Griffith, I don't think,
Right.
skill-wise or career-wise that he was in the same class as Griffith,
Definitely. You know what? That's how it always is, Timmy. You'll have some people that'll think this guy was the greatest fighter ever, and it is. A lot of times it is, unless the numbers don't lie. But look at this, Timmy. 3 of those major fights right there, which were he fought a total of, and I'm talking about hardcore rounds. That's 25, 35, 38 rounds of just tough fight right there in 1961, and that doesn't include the one where you were saying he was potentially um, had gotten suspended, right?
Yeah. That was before those 4 fights.
We probably should not have been fighting.
No.
Anyway,
Absolutely not.
A proper now you know what, I have seen instances, Timmy, where there are some sanctioning bodies that are very strict about their neurological tests. Do you remember Your Boy Campus?
Yeah.
Okay. Your Boy, I went to one of his press conferences one time. Our fight was the day before. The next day they were having a press conference for Your Boy because he was a local fighter there. And so it was a really neat thing because this guy was a very culturally deep guy. What you saw him coming to the ring with the feathered dancers and the antlers and all that stuff. That's really how he was. And at the press conference, they had some type of very local, almost like a jerky type meat that was there. It wasn't your regular press.
Yeah.
This was very centered towards his culture and what he believed and thought. Well, I don't know where it was. I want to say it was Vegas. He went for a evaluation before a fight, and so he failed the initial evaluation, and so his manager came in and goes, well, "What do you mean he failed?" He goes, "Look here." He goes, "I told him to draw a house, and he drew a circle with a hole," and he goes, "He lives in the mountains in caves like that for real." Like where he had came from, the way the guy asked him, that was how he lived.
Yeah.
That was his real, experience. And it just made me think at least that guy was actually looking at what was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you go back to Perret's time. Number one, they're not being paid properly. And number two, they have no insurance, and neither did anybody else. Anybody my age knows that back in the 60s and the 70s, you only went to the doctor when you were a kid when you weren't feeling good.
Right.
Okay? And nobody went to the dentist because we were all poor kids. The dentist was in the bottom of the public school, and the guy drilled holes in your teeth with no anesthetic, you know?
Right.
So that was, the way it was, Mike. Nobody had money for the doctor, or never mind the hospital.
Definitely.
You know,
You're 100%
PDO.
right. That was the bottom of the thoughts. People were just trying to make it, man. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was
for sure.
very, very hard back then. I think what's crazy today is that with all this medical technology we have, that they don't make these guys, somebody got to pay, the promoters, somebody got to pay and get these guys checked out. But it's just about making money because it's a job, it's a living, it's a business, and what happens to these guys. And Willie Klassen, another guy, Madison Square Garden, believe it was 1979.
Yes.
And Klassen was a Puerto Rican guy. He lived up in the Bronx. He was a young kid, and he had 4 children, and that night that he got hurt, he was fighting a really good fighter, Wilfred Scipione. Scipione only had about 11, 12 fights, but Klassen was known to be a heroin addict. And, he had a lot of problems back and forth with that. And I heard his trainer say that he wasn't, that he used it one time, but.
Yeah, who's going to actually say that, right?
Well, I don't want to disparage Willie Klassen, may he rest in peace, and I'm not talking about him specifically when I say this, but most times when guys use drugs, it's not just once. It's
there's very few people that tried heroin once or crack or something like that, and just that's all they did.
The reason I say that is, who wakes up and says today, "Oh, I'm going to try heroin.
I'm going to try this out." I know it doesn't happen.
It has to be of events that happened in his life. But Klassen was a tough street kid. He was, and that was the thing back then, was street fighting, neighborhood street fighting, fist fighting. Everybody get in a circle, and it was a famous expression between white, black, and brown. It was one-on-one. Let's go one-on-one. And their boys and your boys, and they make the circle, and you settle it with fisticuffs. And when it's all said and done, that's it. That's the end of it. You know what I mean? And Klassen had a lot of those go-rounds. You got to see it, Mike, like a public schoolyard, say maybe 50 yard by 50 yards. There's 200 kids in the schoolyard, and these 2 guys are going at it in the middle of the schoolyard, because what it would do is the neighborhoods were so, I don't know, it was like borderline, the Irish were here, the black were here, and everybody be around, and and it was a sight to behold. I mean, sometimes it could draw a couple hundred people, and he was involved in a lot of that, and so were a lot of guys, and he was good enough tough enough to and took lessons and learned to become a pro fighter, but I think that the death of Willie Klassen is 2 things. Number one, he didn't take care of himself, and if he was sick going into that fight, he had neurological problems. Somebody around them had to see it.
That's the key to a lot of it, Tim. I think a lot of people just, they, like you said, they're in it for a buck. They don't care. I've seen guys that had no business fighting. You know what I mean? They could barely walk. When a guy if I saw signs of anything like that with a guy, especially towards the end of his career or whatever, I would start trying to persuade him to look for a job or something, or maybe become a trainer, or those type of things, because
Yeah.
it just, you know what I mean. You know where it's going from there. It ain't getting better. And
Yeah.
on that fight, Scipion is actually a Texas guy, trained
Yes.
in Houston a lot of time.
Yeah.
He was with Kenny Weldon a lot in Pasadena. Kenny Weldon, me and Lee were talking about Kenny Weldon the other day, yesterday, in fact, when me and you were messaging and everything. Kenny Weldon had some world class fighters at his gym a lot. Because Duva would go there a lot.
Right.
Um, he brought Benny Pazienza. He had Riddick Bowe over there. So this is off subject, but real fast. Lee said he was sparring with Riddick Bowe, and he said, he caught Bowe a couple times and stuff, and he said Riddick Bowe was, damn, that white boy can fight, man. That white boy can punch right there. Lee thought that was so funny, man. That he had said that or whatever. But
he has neurological damage with it.
yeah, that's kind of what we were talking about. I was telling him, I said it was kind of sad watching Riddick Bowe talk right now. It
And
was
we were talking about heavyweights and punches. Larry Holmes, the way Larry Holmes talks.
Yeah.
When he first started fighting, he didn't talk like that. Now today, you see, he talks with a lisp.
Yeah.
There's that, and you can see that's from neurological damage. He took so many shots in the head. And who knows? I mean, if it doesn't kill you, you never really know the extent of the damage of it, I guess, till you get old like him. Larry's old now.
Tim, how about Dooku Kim and Ray Mancini? That was one.
That was sad. I mean, that was it was billed as a great fight, but what happened and what came about, the story after it, that he felt Dooku Kim felt such a need to win that he wrote it on the table in his hotel room, fight or die, and he died trying to win the fight. I said the same thing. Who checked this kid out? He was a young kid, but
Right.
that it could happen at any time, because he put up a really good fight, that kid.
Yeah.
And I think it was in the 14th round or something like that.
It was later on. It wasn't. Yeah.
Late fight, and he died. And I always liked Ray Mancini. The first time I saw Mancini fight, he fought the great Alexis Arguello, and Mancini showed respect. And when he lost the fight, he lost it to a well-seasoned fighter. But Mancini felt so bad about it. He donated his whole purse to the Kim family, which was a lot of money. We'll talk about millions of dollars, but when somebody's life is at stake, if you're a good person, and you can't really blame the fighter, but the fighter's always going to feel that he had a hand in it,
Right.
because the guy died by his hands. But that's why I said you don't know. I mean, blood clot, aneurysm could, it could happen at any time. But what I'm saying is if there's neurological problems like that, then there had to be some kind of telltale signs.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just like before you have a stroke. Like one day, my old man, he was at the stove, and he was pulling his food out of there on the tray, and he picked the tray up, and all of a sudden his arm went dead. And I was rushed over, and it's like, "What's the matter, Pop?" He says, "I don't know. I never had that happen to me. My hand just opened." And then I was reading after he had the stroke, that's a telltale sign that happens to part of your hands open up like that. There's a stroke, and sure enough, he had a stroke. But generally, there are signs, but I mean, there could be where it just happened at that moment. But to see such a guy who was such a tough fighter in Dooku Kim, and you see the devastation to Ray Mancini. He has two families touched by tragedy. And
Right.
what was supposed to be a positive thing, it turned into ultimately one fighter losing his life because uh, after a boxing match, both guys should be able to go home. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's sad. It's a tragedy all the way around.
Absolutely terrible. And you were 100% right. Yeah, it was the 14th round,
Yeah.
and Kim was from South Korea.
Yes,
I knew
it was something like that.
He had fought in July, so he fought Mancini in November.
Yeah.
In July of that same year, he had fought in South Korea, and he won. It was a TKO. Um, so, yeah, I mean, just a tragic loss. That's another one that with Mancini, him whenever he spoke of it, it was something that really affected him. It wasn't something that I think he just brushed off at whatever. I think that really affected him, his life, and kind of not to go back to it too much, but just to say, Gabriel Ellis. I remember hearing him say, he would look after when he tried to get back into boxing. He would look across the ring and see that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was,
Well, you know what it is like. The Ruelas brothers are very respectful guys. Both fighters are well seasoned fighters. They had a lot of fights. I think Ruelas. I was just looking at it on TV. He was like 27-1 when he fought Oscar De La Hoya. But they were gentlemen. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they were business-like. And it was a serious thing. Fighting. It meant the world to them. That's their identity. That's who they are.
Yeah.
And it's just sad. And we're talking about Ruelas and Jimmy Garcia. He was a nice kid too. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
And he wasn't a wise guy, loudmouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like Adrian Broner or one of those guys. Mm-hmm. He just wasn't that way, and you can see it. He goes in the ring. Ruelas comes in the ring. He shakes the guy's hand. They put the gloves together. When the fight starts, they touch gloves, and because it's all sportsmanship, and that's what boxing's about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, think about what. So I was looking at that. That was 1995, right? That was 1995. The year before that, David had this fight, and so I mean they're both, fairly big fights. A year later, there was another death, and there's who knows how many in other countries or whatever where it's not maybe as talked about or whatever.
It's the promoters. Okay, it's Don King, it's Bob Arum, and now today, 50 years ago they couldn't be in the same room. Now today they're best buddies.
Yeah.
But the both of them, another guy, Cedric Kushner. Okay, mm-hmm. All of them. They didn't care about the fighters. These guys are just about money. That's all they're about is money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Don King was just as bad as Bob Arum, or vice versa. I have no respect for a promoter like that. You got a young guy. He's been around a while now. He took it over in New York. He's a good promoter. Is Lou DiBella.
Okay, yeah, I know who Lou is. Some of my fighters fought on his cards before.
And he's honest because in the sense that he's not out to hurt the fighter.
Yeah.
And that's what these guys did. I heard Jerry Cooney talk about not signing with Don King. Mm-hmm. And I got one question for him. Are you crazy? You ain't going nowhere. Never going to get it. He never would have smelled that championship again if he didn't sign with King or Arum.
Yeah.
And that's the deal. I told you with my brother, they send in Al Cerdo. He was Hamshow's man. Mm-hmm. He is a manager, agent, promoter, but he'd make no mistake about it. He was a Don King guy. you know.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that, you know, if you achieve success like Holmes, I'll give you an example. The Friday before the Holmes Cooney fight, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Larry Holmes calls up Don King, and he says to Don King, he said, Don, he said, yeah, he said, you got 60 minutes to make the deposit in my account. If you don't make the deposit in my account, the fight's off tomorrow. And Don King said, what? He said, that's right. You're not paying me after the fight. What do you think? Who do you think I am?
Yeah.
You make the deposit in 60 minutes or forget about it. And King went, and about 3:40 or whatever, the bank closed at 4 o'clock, 20 minutes before they made the deposit. But he was the champion. You know, no other fighter is going to get away with that. And that's what I said about
Right.
Tim Witherspoon and promoters and stuff like that. You know, but in order to go somewhere, you either had to sign with Don King or Bob Arum. You ain't going nowhere. And Cedric Kushner was like, I think he was a South African guy, and he was like a British promoter or whatever he was, an overseas promoter, and he was trying to stick his nose in on Las Vegas and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And maybe not so much Las Vegas, but he definitely was trying to get into Jersey. You know,
Yeah.
and you know those.
He put on some promotions. I remember, you know, quite a few Cedric Kushner promotions and stuff. There was a few of them, man, that I can think of. The Goosens had a
Good
pretty
people.
good. They had a pretty good promotion going. Um, you know, Duvas had
Yeah.
main events. Main events
Yeah.
was, you know, pretty big. But I will tell you, without a doubt, you had to be with one of those. You had to be with Bob
Yeah.
Arum. You had to be with Don King. You had to
Right.
if
Right.
you even think you're gonna fight for a title, you're gonna have a contract. I don't care if you're not even expected to win. There's gonna be a clause in there somewhere where you've signed some type of promotional deal, some type of rematch, some type of all that crap is covered, man. You're not
Yeah.
just gonna freestyle it in there and think you're gonna do something. It ain't happening, man. So
Well, you see, what they were doing was like when they saw Cooney, right away they make it racial. You know, white heavyweight, white heavyweight. That's the
Yeah.
call. White heavyweight, white heavyweight.
Mhm.
Right? And then the newspapers get a hold of it. Now we got the Great White Hope.
Right.
Okay, so that's a little self promotion without trying on Cooney's part. Okay, because once these guys started talking about him, the news got involved, right? And now they're looking, who's this kid Jerry Cooney? You know what I mean? Which he
Right.
wasn't hard to find because, you know, Cooney was I don't know, 2 or 3 time Golden Glove champion,
Right.
and he uh, he trained in Gleason's gym, so you get a lot of exposure no matter who you are, because it's
Mhm.
people all the time in and
It's
out
like
of
a
there.
mecca of boxing.
Yeah, yeah, and being so close, you know, you walk right out, you trip, you'd be in the garden across the street. But they pushed that, you know, and it was the first time ever at the time where the a challenger got the same purse as the champion. And Holmes was, you know, he was bitching about it, but Holmes wasn't a ticket seller.
That's the thing. If you could put butts in seats,
Yeah,
you don't
yeah,
have to be the champion. If people want to see you,
right.
that's what's going to matter. Yeah.
And Cooney wanted to fight in the garden. He wanted the fight to be in the garden, and he got 12 million bucks, same as Holmes.
Yeah.
And but the truth of the matter was, if you looked into the backstory of Cooney, he wasn't ready because the guy he had training him, Victor Valley, had no business training Cooney. He didn't. When your fighter, okay, and I don't blame Jerry Cooney. Okay, even though he's the fighter, I blame Victor Valley. When you get smacked in the mouth 2 or 3 times, right, and you're on Queer Street, okay, and the lights are starting to dim, If you don't know how to grab your opponent and hold your opponent and walk your opponent to the rope, okay, and hold on just to clear your head, just to
Get
waste
through that.
time, to clear your head. You know what I mean? And it was quite evident because a guy that doesn't know any defense, the first thing he does is put his hands up like that, okay? And the guy is swinging, he's coming with hooks and jabs and right hands and, uppercuts and all that. And, and I was like, I looked at my father, I was like, what the hell is going on here? But now, here's what my dad said. If you were getting hit like that in sparring, wouldn't you do something about it? I said, Pop, that's easy for you or I to say, or somebody else that was taught that. That's a natural reaction. Somebody got to teach you that. Somebody got to, hey, when this guy, you see, lights start to dim on you, you grab hold of this guy, and you hook onto him, and I don't care what anybody says in any sport. The best offense is a great defense, and in boxing, that's true when a guy is a good boxer. Because this guy could come at you with all you want, and you back him right off with the jab, and then you do what you want to do. You know what I mean? But that's basically promoters. Mike. I really don't really have anything good to say about them because of all the guys I saw that were just used up and thrown away. What killed boxing is judges and referees.
That's
always. Inserting themselves in the fight,
Yeah.
I watch a fight. Now, if you had one guy 1 point either way.
Yeah.
And then this guy comes up with a score 117, 111. What the hell was this guy watching? You know what I mean? So, and then the referees, like, what was his name? Richard Steele.
Oh, yeah, Steele.
This guy has to be the all-time worst. He thinks he's the best. He's the worst.
Right.
He does. He thinks he's the best. He's the worst there ever was. He when he stopped that Chavez Taylor fight, these guys are killing one another the whole fight. They were beating the hell out of one another back and forth.
Yeah.
Right. Both of them. Taylor had the mouse. Chavez was bleeding in the nose and the mouth. Right. There's seconds left to go in the fight. He stops the fight. They've been killing each other the same way the whole fight.
And
now he stopped. So stuff like that. There's so many bad decisions. I just get up and walk out on the fight.
How about the Serrano versus Taylor fight? Remember, I think me and you both saw that fight as Serrano winning, right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
That was a terrible decision, man. That was horrible. I mean, that's my opinion.
After the second fight, which Serrano won the fight, hands down, she won the fight.
I think so.
The champion, she was talking like it was a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you something about fighting. When somebody got the better of you. You know that.
Yeah.
And to stand there and to talk like it never happened.
Yeah.
I thought it was crazy. Maybe if you was a little humble and you showed the other fighter a little respect, because Serrano was a big payday for her. Serrano was skilled. She's a tough fighter. You know what I mean? But she's, I guess, one girl, the champion's the ticket seller. The other girl is the unknown. And they do everything to protect it, And now that's a shame that night because that was history. That was the first time two women ever main evented the Madison Square Garden in the boxing match.
Yeah, and that second fight, I thought that was the fight of the year, man.
Yes,
that was a
really
good fight, man.
It was really
that was a good fight. I'm not saying that Taylor didn't fight a good fight. I'm just saying that.
You know what it is? There's young fighters out there, but there's no media outlets to cover these guys. Like there's a feather out there. His name is Oscar Valdez Jr. You gotta see this guy fight. This guy is a throwback from the old days.
Yeah.
This guy, he's a rock'em sock'em robot, and nobody knows the guy's name, unless you're with
terrible.
with what's his name? What's the Golden Boy?
Oh yeah,
Dick
De La
Hoya,
Hoya. Yeah,
or you with one of those promotions. You know what I mean?
right.
And it's sad because back when I was younger, we had the Tuesday night fights, which I loved, and
I
then
love Tuesday night fights, man. Sean O'Grady.
yeah, and you had a
Yeah,
whole card. So he
definitely.
was
I loved him.
guy. There's a guy don't get no credit. He was a tough guy, Sean O'Grady.
Sean O'Grady, yeah, he was,
The
man.
fighter, Sean
Yeah,
O'Grady.
he was. A lot of people don't know that. He was a hell of a fighter, man.
Yes, he was
Sean
very,
O'Grady
very
was
good
a
fighter.
bad dude, man. Definitely,
know.
definitely, man.
And
Nah,
they
those
had-
were the good old days, Timmy. Tuesday
the
night
other
fights.
guy they had on Showtime, I like he was a decent fighter. Bobby Ches,
Ches was tough. Yeah, man. I liked watching Ches fight. Yeah.
yeah, he was a pretty good fighter, but he
I
was very,
s-
very good announcer, Ches.
He was a good announcer, Timmy. He was a great fighter. I saw he was working at a grocery store or something recent, the last I saw, but doing good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't see,
He got I don't know, about a year ago, he got in a bad car accident.
I know he had some type of health
He's
thing or something.
Huge scar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his face is mangled over here.
Oh man, dang! I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah.
Here's Bobby Chen's downfall is drinking.
Yeah.
He got the 4 DWIs, and Showtime fired him.
Is that what ended up happening? Okay.
Yeah. And then the wife left. I guess took everything, and then he had to get up and go to work. He was working in a supermarket.
Yeah. I remember seeing that and everything. He was he was a tough
He's
fighter
very good
at the time.
announcer. Very good announcer.
Good announcer.
As a fighter, I say he was a good fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say so, yeah. Enough to be known. You know what I mean? Enough to where he was known. Not saying he's the best fighter ever or anything like that, but he was a decent fighter and was a known guy. Good announcer though. Very good.
I had a friend, Doug DeWitt. Doug DeWitt was a middleweight, and he had to go up to 175 pounds. He got a shot at Tommy Hearns, Doug DeWitt, and he put on the weight, and DeWitt could punch and he could take a punch, but he was even at 175 pounds, he looked real skinny. You could see his bones in his ribs, but he gave Hearns a hard time. I think he won 10 or 11 rounds with Hearns before Hearns knocked him out. But Doug DeWitt told me, he said Chez is a tough guy. He said, but the way to beat him easy, he said, is just to box him. He said neutralize him, keep him in the center of the ring. He said he's not that not that devastating, when he got you by the ropes and stuff like that.
Right.
And Chez, I got a little sour taste because he'd always talk bad about Holyfield.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I don't dig that either, man. I get it, man. Some guys had their personal things and stuff like that, but then also, man, you have to respect. At a certain point, you have to respect certain guys for what they achieved and what they did. And in my opinion, Holyfield's one of those guys, man.
Well, Holyfield is, Lennox Lewis, Holyfield, Mike Tyson. There's a few more guys, but they're like the last era of the great heavyweights. I like I was watching Hasim Rahman go after Lewis in I don't know where they were. I guess they were going to have a press conference or something, and he's a gentleman, Lennox Lewis, and Hasim made the mistake of trying to manhandle him, which he knocked him out the next night in the fight. You know what I mean? But Lewis wasn't having it, and I like that. He went right after him,
Yeah.
But there's some great heavyweights, like today, Like the only heavyweight I like two of them. I like Usyk and I like Anthony Joshua.
Okay.
I don't think
Hey
so.
Timmy, this was a great one, man. I think we covered this well. We'll plan another one and have another one ready to roll. You got any parting words before we jet?
Just like to ask everybody, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks, Mike. It's always a pleasure being with you.
Appreciate it big time, Timmy, man. But till the next one, man. Everybody, thanks for watching. And again, thanks to the Boxing Encyclopedia, Timmy Irish.